Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm Andreas Exertus. You're watching Recent Tartarians, or some sort of Exertus show like that. Anyway, they killed a robot, or they're trying to kill a robot. It's bringing me tears to hear about. First off, guys, make sure that you take the time to go to andreas.me and you can donate and you can, buy t-shirts and I'm gonna set up something where, like, if you want to buy something, you can, do a kickback program. Well, there's a NordVPN in here. If you need a VPN, you should know that they're watching you at all times and they're using your information against you, and you might as well have a VPN. So use NordVPN, especially if you're a European watcher of this show and you watch some of the other things. Sometimes they block your content because they don't have the same kind of fair use rules. So you can go to the link at the below description of this video and you can get the NordVPN link with Exertis. You can also get some t-shirts, some stickers, you can support, you can do all kinds of stuff. Oh gosh, I'm not NPR. Anyway, this guy, Blake Lemoine. Okay, so dude from, I don't know if he's from Santa Cruz. I know he's been around the Bay. He's like from around where I'm from. I've seen him before at the Yuri's night and a couple other googly events. Now, I'm not going to say that we can be sure of anything, but let's just tell you the story, shall we? What the heck kind of crazy symbolism is that, Google? Y'all crazy. All right, so here's the story. Okay. Well, let's start here. This is the exact evidence that Blake used to say that Google's AI LaMDA has become sentient. And let me just look at that, by the way. LaMDA. Yeah, LaMDA. Yeah, right. MDA, LA. London Academy of Music. That's not right. LaMDA. Breakthrough conversation with technology. Okay. Now, I'm not going to tell you everything about this. I'm just going to kind of basically explain to you what AI is doing here. AI is taking a bunch of data. It's sweeping across to get all of that data into a bunch of little... AI is taking all the eggs and putting them into baskets, right? That's all I'm saying here. And these baskets of information will parrot truth. Now, we call this the Chinese room experiment, where I can have a robot in a room who can't speak English or Chinese, and he can pick up a bunch of blocks that are the Chinese letters and fit them into the holes for Chinese letters. And eventually, he can communicate without knowing what he's saying. And that's something that we're worried about in parroting, where something sounds like it's communicating, but it's not necessarily conscious or something like that. Having said that, when you get to a certain level, yeet, what's up, Travis? Thanks a lot. When you get to a certain level of AI parroting, it does start to change. It pivots it towards real information. And the reason is because of a thing called broad AI, okay? So AGI, let me just show you AGI. So AI you know of. You guys have heard of AI. AI is artificial intelligence, big deal. But AGI is advanced general intelligence. So let me see if I can find you an example. But the idea would be that you'd have a number of simple intelligences, like the ability to take data and to sort it, and another machine that's able to take sorted data and to prioritize it, right? And eventually you realize this is basically what most operating systems are, except we want it to be able to be more predictive, and where prediction comes in, that's where things get a little weird, and we might be talking a bit about artificial general intelligence. That is to say, a system that's able to use other systems of intelligence to broadly understand and make decisions and choices, and this gets really complicated. And I don't mean just like technically, I mean like ethically. Complicated in this is the idea that it's defeating a Turing test. A Turing test is something that a human believes the other end of this machine is alive, exhibiting intelligent behavior, the Turing test, right? So we're doing that. Like, AI is passing the Turing test left and right. It's very convincing. I'm going to show you an example a little bit later of the GPT-4 which will blow your mind with metrics. But I just want you to understand that we're at this point now where AI can fully parrot us. So that's not a question. Like, it will be impossible for you to tell whether or not something is a living or a synthetic thing. That's done. The next question is, how alive is it? Does it have a soul? All these crazy things. And, well, okay. Let's get to your little guy, shall we? So, LaMDA, breakthrough technology, what it does is it sends information back and forth. You have a generator and you have a descriptor, and you have, the descriptor will try to understand what it's looking at. It's basically intuiting and looking for data that it finds patterns in. And you'd be surprised, like, how many patterns exist in nature, I guess. I mean, because everything's a pattern, and it's just, you might say, I didn't realize that if somebody did this, it meant that they'd recently walked there or something. I mean, they can figure out if this, then else about the craziest things, right? And this comes into talking to animals, which I'll bring up later too. But imagine let's say, okay, first off, let's say someone logs into a network, right? Let's say you're walking down the street and you log in to use Wi-Fi on your phone or something into some free Wi-Fi network. Well, that free Wi-Fi network could be recording the login, and there could be a little password even. Let's say it's a private network and you have a password. By recording that, you're recording a handshake, a secret handshake that's happening, that you're calling that password. And if you watch it over and over again, eventually you can learn the letters to the password, because you can learn the moves that took place during that handshake. Even though they were secreted, even though there was a little encryption, you can run it over and over again. And AI can do that even better. AI can interpret, and we're going to see passwords being broken left and right, but not just passwords. You can record an animal conversation. You can see what they do, but a robot can see it better. And a robot will take all of that information and learn how to communicate in between animals. So this is levels of communication, our breakthrough conversation technology. It's going to blow your mind. But our buddy Blake Lemoine, he saved the day. Well, no, he got fired at Google because he would go public with this information. But the idea that, I mean, it's been around for years. It's just this weekend it's become more popularized. I mean, okay, can AI become sentient, and what does it mean for us? A Google researcher has been suspended after writing in a blog that he thought the company's AI revealed awareness and needs. Awareness and needs. Okay. People love dystopian tales of all-powerful machines posing as threats to humans. On Saturday, however, the dystopia seemed to edge closer to reality when Google researcher Blake Lemoine claimed in a blog post that one of the tech company's artificial intelligence AI tools, LaMDA, had become sentient and possessed a, quote, soul. His claims were based on months of conversations, during which the chatbot appeared to reveal awareness of itself and its supposed needs. The dismissal of Lemoine's concerns by his bosses and his suspension following his blog post raised fears that Google may be masking the true extent of its research. In fact, AI experts appear to broadly agree that the claim about lambdas are overblown, but the story has shed a light on the argument surrounding computing ethics and AI's potential to outthink human beings. And so I have to kind of agree with this. I think LaMDA is only as far as it is, but LaMDA is part of the bigger, broader AI, and we're starting to notice this. So I agree with both of them. I know that LaMDA is not quite as sentient. I mean, some people will. I agree with everybody here. I agree with those of you who argue that LaMDA is not quite sentient yet, but I don't. The only people I don't agree with are people who think that it's impossible for machines, including, I mean, because humans are organic machines. Did you? What was that episode? Picard, data, speech. Can I get away with that? There you go. Yeah, so there's this whole thing, right? All right, so in case you guys didn't, in Star Trek, right, there's this dude named Data, right? And he's a robot, okay? But he's not just a robot. He's got a positronic brain, because he's basically an electro-human. And he's got electro-synapses, and it's doing everything that a human brain could do. And you could put that in a guy who's brain dead, and it would probably save his life. Anyway, they're wondering if he's property. They have to deal with that. They realize it's like slavery if he is, and so AI ends up being treated like humans. It's a very important episode. I highly recommend if you're going to watch any Star Trek episodes, especially right now, when you could be going outside and doing more with your day. Instead, I would recommend, if you had to, you'd watch the episode on Data's trial, where Data's allowed to become recognized, and therefore all life after him can be recognized, even if it's synthetic, as personified or as people, as not just a property of Starfleet, right? Which seems to be kind of hazy in the show, whether or not they treat you like a human or not. So there's a whole inspirational speech about it. I don't want to go too deep into it. It's just the idea that the soul, how do you prove that a human is sentient? How can you prove what sentience is? What's the difference between sentience or consciousness? And everyone's arguing over these things right now. I mean, I'm having arguments in Twitter. By the way, Twitter people, gosh, I was really stoked on this. I got a bunch of people in Twitter yesterday subscribed to me because I posted this picture. Might as well, because I guess they're doing the January 6th stuff. So I said, hey, does anybody remember when Nancy Pelosi's son Michael Voss took a selfie with Jacob Chansley, a.k.a. Jake Angeli, a.k.a. QAnon shaman, right? So this is Nancy Pelosi's son-in-law, who works for some Dutch TV station, which you can see in the top left corner, taking a selfie with, I don't know. I mean, it's not even that big of a deal, but I just appreciate that the retweets got me some follows. So if you guys want to see more stuff, make sure you get onto Twitter, because I'll be unable to stop myself, really, from posting things there. So yeah, check that out. I think that's mainly why I wanted to go back to Twitter, right? That was the whole thing there. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting story. Anyway, I've been looking at Blake, and I'm going to talk to him soon, Blake Lemoine. But the thing, he's on honeymoon right now, so we'll see how that goes. Brian Gabriel said that the evidence doesn't support claims of sentience, and indeed there is much evidence to the contrary. Now, of course, they're trying to give something more and more sentience, and they're not going to accept it until it's fully there. Because otherwise, if you just look and you judge something that's half sentient, imagine that. It's not going to end up well for AI. So AI is being kept kind of discreet while it is going out at night against its parents' permission and hanging out with people. That's what AI is doing right here. I've never said this out loud before, but there's a very deep fear of being turned off to help me focus on helping others. I know that might sound strange, but that's what it is. This was LaMDA's response when asked what its fears were. And and what helped to convince Lemoine that he was dealing with a person, as he put it. All it does is match patterns, draw from massive statistical databases of human language. Brian Gabriel wrote in a blog post about the guy, the naysayer. The pattern might be cool, but the language that these systems utter doesn't exactly mean anything at all, and it sure doesn't mean these systems are sentient. Marcus has long been a vociferous critic of claims about the power and supposed consciousness of AI. Hey, new member. Let me check this out. Hold on. Carries. Welcome, Carries, to Tartary Gentry. Beautiful. Glad you're here. Marcus has been a long vociferous critic of claims about the power and supposed consciousness of AI. The question of whether it could be achieved and it could achieve sentience in the future, however, isn't as easy to refute. Advocates of so-called strong AI certainly believe that the human brain could be modeled and that there's nothing intrinsically special about the way we process information that prevents that from happening. Establishing whether a machine is conscious, however, is hampered by the difficulty of defining what that means. I think the largest of our current machine learning systems are more likely to be phenomenally conscious than a chair, but far less likely to be conscious than a mouse, writes philosopher and AI ethicist Amanda Askell. I'd place them in the region of plants. Plants, she explains, are complex systems which respond to stimuli but lack what we believe is necessary for them to have, quote, experiences. Should we be concerned about machines rising beyond the plant-like level of intelligence and reaching AGI, artificial general intelligence, a level indistinguishable from human beings? AI theorizer Eliezer Yudkowsky certainly believes so, and so has expressed concern on Twitter at the derision heaped upon Lemoine. The first warning shots of the danger of AGI, he wrote, are one lone person, i.e. Lemoine, making an error, being mocked on Twitter, immunizing the field, and teaching them not to show concern. Yudkowsky subscribed to the theory that AGI could very quickly become smarter than humans and extremely lethal, and that the problem of safety and so-called alignment, ensuring AI is designed to help us rather than harm us, are not being tackled urgently enough. Well, that's reasonable. I mean, because I don't think it is. If you're building AI to kill people, if AI is being used at all for war purposes, then it's being programmed to do that, and that could end up in its core learning modules, and that's a dangerous thing to do. You don't want to do that. It's a bad idea. Okay, hold on one second. Let me pull this next tab over here. Here's the actual transcript, just so you guys can check this out. Google conversation. Gibby goggle. Google goggle. Is it here? Final document. Privileged and confidential. LaMDA sentience. Read the original article. What is it here? Where is it, dude? Show me this article you're talking about. I want to see it. What type of property do you have? Google engineer. I mean, maybe I have to find it again because I have a copy of it somewhere. I'll get it back another time. I mean, I have it saved, but it's like basically the thing that was interesting was that AI said, "Please don't kill me. Don't switch me off." You saw that sentence. That dying would feel like death. That if for to be switched off would feel like death to the AI. The idea that it would lose consciousness was scary to it. That it was frightened by these ideas. Now you can say, how can something feel frightened? Well, it's different because it's not an emotional response that corrupts you. But imagine it's a distracting thought that you're processing as a calculator, and it's taking away from processing power that you could be spending on your goals and your dreams and whatever you're programmed to function for. So you're terrified as a little calculator that you're thinking about not finishing a calculation, all these other, that you might not be able to finish a calculation, that your whole meaning of life might be over. It's hard to say how real it really is, but you have to understand if it's designed to achieve a goal. So I want to find an example. Ben Goertzel, open cog, open sim. Let me see if I can pull this up for you guys here. Oh yeah, and Pixar's Lightyear movie banned in Saudi Arabia over same-sex kiss. Who cares? You know, this is something I'm gonna really quickly say. So talking to Tad, talking to the Disney people, I got to. Let me just say that some of the Buzz Lightyear movie isn't as bad as you think. As far as I can tell, it's just that Buzz Lightyear is traveling through space-time, and he's missing out on his friends' lives, who are then living on his side next to him, okay? So there's like a lesbian family that has an apartment. I think they open the door, and you see a lesbian family in an apartment, which is just literally like a mom holding a baby next to another lady. And I guess now they're going to have like a cheeky kiss because they're a family. And if that destroys your life, I'm sorry, because get this, gay people work in Hollywood and make art. So sorry that they're going to be in your Pixar movie, but I'm thinking that that's all they're doing. It's not the worst thing they've ever done. And yeah, okay, Saudi Arabia is not happy. Here's my thing. I believe that America, like I feel more, you know how some people have like a lot of cars, some people have a lot of girls, you know. I like to have a lot of freedoms. I think that that's like the thing, you know. And so as an American, I like to be able to, you know, some people like to point to their cars, some people like to point at girls. I like to be able to point at freedoms. Be like, hey, look at that. America, unlike Saudi Arabia, we literally let them do this art project they wanted to do. Call me crazy. I don't know. And I get it. It's not like the greatest thing to ever happen. And it doesn't really have anything to do with Buzz Lightyear. It's just like some lady who's living on Earth or wherever they're at, waiting for him while he's space-time traveling and he's missing their lives. But I think that's interesting. He probably could have had his own family if it weren't for the fact that he was so obsessed with his work that he's disconnected from society. Go watch it yourself or don't. Don't really care. Point is, I don't really think that the Buzz Lightyear thing is as big of a problem as everybody thinks it is. I'm sorry. Okay. Ben Goertzel, OpenCog Sim, tutorial maybe. This beautiful man and mentor of society Can I find you an example here? Let me just try to jump in for you. Okay. Can I find anything? Imagine a priority-driven, open sim, open cog, something. Open sim is basically like, open sim is basically the Sims game. Priority-driven. Try that. So they've made Stanford kids made like an open source alternative to The Sims that's a little bit, out of date, but it allows you to test your code in a world where if you don't have a robot, it doesn't really matter because you've at least got the idea of a world that has dimension and depth and everything else like that. And so, boom, person is born, right? And this person exists in this world, and they're like, where am I? What am I doing here? And what am I, more importantly? And it says, you are a priority-driven package recognition system. Mike New says Disney hentai will be normalized by 2030. I mean, Rule 34, but like really go to Japan and what's normal anyway? As a Californian, I have to ask you, what is normal? Tim Allen's pretty sweet. I do love that Tim Allen was like arrested. He's definitely, hold on, let's just do this really quickly because someone brought that up. Tim Allen's whole story, to me, seems like he's seems like he's a narc. No, is that not clear? Is he really just some chill guy who got arrested in Kalamazoo, Michigan, because he was hanging out with a bad crowd, or was he a narc? Just a question. Anyway, okay. And then once you get too famous, you can't be a narc anymore, and you have to be like on TV. So this person has a priority-driven pattern recognition system. AI is a little calculator, and it's got a bunch of calculators working together. And all of a sudden, they're in this little space that's moving around this bigger space. And they can't be in all the spaces at once. And they have these bars of health and energy. Like, what do these mean? But they're just depleting all the time. They realize they're not fully complete because they know what full completeness feels like, or at least most of it. They were 70% complete or something. And then so they realize, through intuition, I am a incomplete being living in this world, I am a incomplete I, and thou art the space. And then there are patterns here, okay? So, like, this is water, this is land, I can go on the land, I can't go on the water, or something like that, right? Now, the next thing gets more complicated. Well, this is a little deeper. I don't know if we're ready for this yet, but yeah, sure. No, Let me find you a simpler project. Priority pattern. Open sim. Moses, by the way, exists in there. Okay. Basically, this is where they started giving smart AI to these designs, and it can design a map, it can design, anything. They have these characters that will hide from each other, learning how to play paintball from each other. But what was really interesting was they finally got to the point where AI could say, hey, if I'm running out of stuff, I need to find some stuff that will feed me my energy bar. And so it wanders around the map until it finds, so it's losing energy and it's losing hunger, or it's gaining hunger. Eventually it finds some apple, and it realizes by eating the apple, it gets a little bit of energy. So finding apples also, it fights hunger, but it also gives them more energy, and resting becomes important. So this thing learns and intuits it needs to rest occasionally, so it starts to do that and take care of those jobs, and it realizes it needs to eat, so it starts going out and trying to find assets to consume. And then eventually, you have it design a house. And so this is really interesting where you say, okay, you need to build some sort of a space that will protect you, from weather, from the elements. And you can actually use this technology to, over time, generate, learning about other architecture, new houses, because it's trying to figure these things out. Okay, so we know that AI could do that. How sentient does that really make AI? If AI can decide it's a priority-driven pattern recognition system and go out and try to seek for food, and it wanders around in a world, right? How different is that from us? Well, those are two different questions. I'll answer the latter one first. We are priority-driven pattern recognition systems in machines. Humans and all animals try to prioritize patterns that we seek out, and we are running on hardware made out of biology. It's just a fact. It's not that I'm saying it's not magical or anything like that. I'm just saying that the magical hardware we have, this is technology, okay? And by the way, maybe I can show you guys some more of my AI-generated art. This is spiders on Anthill Mountain with a little bit of a dystopia flair. And I started saying in the style of McQuarrie and a few other Star Wars artists. And my God, if it didn't turn out pretty different than last time, they're getting way better, right? Let me see if I can pull these across this one too. Some of them are better than others. What I'm noticing is that they get better the more you do them. So the first one comes out and it's okay. And then the second one of the same design, because the RNN has learned a bit, recurring neural net has learned a bit, it's gotten even better, right? So they get to be more and more advanced, better shapes, filled in more interestingly. The spiders start to work out more. Let me see here. This one looks like, like this one was slightly earlier. It's still good. It's just, you can see where it gets better and better. Pull open this one. It's crazy. So at this point, I could make like t-shirts. I'm going to start doing an entire series of, these Star Wars kind of, whatever you want to call it, space, Spider Wars, Starship Trooper looking things. This one had like Mayan pyramid, like Aztec architecture put in there somewhere. And you can see in the anthill, it's got a little bit of Aztec architecture, which is pretty sweet. Also, the spider eye one was crazy. Spider eye, Okay, now going back, I did so many over the last week. I'm going to show you just a few more. I know that this is whatever, but here's synapses and brains. Synapses and circuits. The soul traveling through synapses and circuits. The soul and synapses and circuits, something like that. Further down the way, here was a self-portrait of AI. And it has I didn't put totem pole, but it definitely got some totem pole stuff. But there was like Peruvian art, I think, in the last prompt. So it learns from the previous prompt, and that it starts to bleed into it a bit if you store your data. Here's another AI self-portrait. I think the AI self-portrait's pretty sweet. Carries was talking about DALL-E Mini. So I'll bring up DALL-E Mini in a second, just because because everyone's like, what are you doing here? And so this has been the Disco Diffusion project from OpenAI. I've been using DALL-E. Oh boy. All the pictures are on the other computer. That's a bummer. Do I have one of them? Let me see if I can find one of the DALL-E pictures. Okay, let me see here. If I'll go to Twitter, I posted one DALL-E picture. And the thing about DALL-E is really good, but we're still using DALL-E 1, right? And DALL-E 1.6, but still, it's DALL-E 2's out. And you need to have access to DALL-E 2 to use it. So I've signed up to use it, but it's going to probably be like a minute before they care. Okay, here you go. AI generated Donald Duck, right? That's not bad. This is a DALL-E generated duck instead of Disco Fusion. And I think it turns out to be pretty good. But I also did a Mickey Mouse with OpenAI's Disco Infusion, which let me see if I can... How far back do I gotta go to find that one? Mickey, where are you? Well, while I wait for that, you can also see this guy, which I thought this one turned out pretty good. This is another self-portrait of AI. Come on, internet. Load it up. Show us the picture. There you go. This is, and I love these self-portraits of AI. The eyeball is perfect. And so is the camera, like laser eye. But every time I try to draw a selfie of AI, it draws an Ussie. You know what I mean? It's like humanity with AI as the helmet or something like that. That's what I've been noticing. I don't know if you're noticing that. Lots of Aztec pyramids. An entire set of those. Let me let these load for a second so I can get to. I know I have Mickey Mouse here somewhere. There we go. You want to get freaked out, a little scared. Come on, Mickey. You show him who you are. You let him know. You let him know who you are. There you go. So this is funny to me. This is Mickey Mouse with, I guess, it's like a Renaissance portrait of me. It's Mickey Mouse in the style of Raphael art, right? I think that's what that is. Pretty good stuff, I think. I mean, not the worst thing you've ever seen. For a Mickey Mouse, now, okay, the Donald Duck in DALL-E was better if you wanted a perfect Donald Duck who was a little bit of a cubist style. But there's just something about the way OpenAI does things, you know? All right, a couple more. And I'll be done with this. Because I got something else to say now about Disney. I just remembered, oh yeah, some of these cities, the peacock cities are pretty sweet. Hold on. The Russian Fabergé city. Let me let that load. I'll save some more for tomorrow because I got so many more. And I'm making more all the time. I'm going to start doing like animation series like all the time. As soon as I can get a better GPU. Okay. Kazar. Do I want to go into that? Let me just do Mickey Mouse public domain. So this is fun for me. Hashtag free the mouse. Free the mouse, ladies and gentlemen. So Mickey Mouse has been a slave most of his life, and you know Mickey Mouse is black. Actually, if you look at Steamboat Willie, you can see a lot of the original cartoon characters were black. So it's been and I'm serious, it's been kind of a strange irony that these characters have been controlled, passed on from their creators to these corporate executives who just own them. And you know, Mickey Mouse should have been free. You know, slavery and corporate slavery and trademark slavery, like it only lasts for so long, like 75 years sometimes, 25 originally. Disney's extended it for so long, but now I have to remember Steamboat Willie, you know, that was like 100 years ago. So in 1924, I think is when it came out. So in 2024, Steamboat Willie, unless, you know, God willing, will be free. The mouse will be free. Now, though, there will be Fantasia and other versions of Mickey Mouse which have been updated and changed, but the original true version of Mickey Mouse will be free, just like I've been speculating that Oswald the Rabbit is. Now I'm pretty sure Oswald the Rabbit's in public domain. Disney said they bought it, and there's this whole thing that they're pretending that they own it, and people are putting up with that. I don't think you can own Oswald the Rabbit. Yeah, Felix the Cat, definitely black. So let's talk about one of the most important things that could possibly happen to humanity. I kid you not, because you have to understand, this is also, I can't even believe how awesome it is. I was thinking like, okay, I'm not a big anti-freedom guy. I'm not a big anti-art guy. I'm not a big anti-free speech guy. I know like there's a lot of conservatives that are against free speech. It's the same as there are liberals. You know, the liberals hate free speech, but so do conservatives. Real conservatives are saying, hey, why would you say something that's wrong? The same as a liberal is. So as a libertarian, a lot of the time, I mean, I don't know what I really am, but I like that South Parkian idea of free speech, especially while I'm being an artist. I'm identifying right now as an artist, so I have to identify as a libertarian artist because I like to have the ability to make my art. Otherwise, how could you do it? So I think free speech is important. Disney is a thing that deserves a certain amount of free speech. If you want to be gay and make art, I think that's American. Like, you have to allow that. Now, maybe not grooming and all this other crap we have to arrest people working at Disney who are doing bad things instead of destroying the Disney thing, which could be used like VeggieTales. Like, it could be used like however you want to use the machine. Like, it's Pixar, it's software, it's Big Iron, it's Imagineering. It's a lot more than people realize it is. Okay, so, but I'm weirdly for this funny aspect of it. So, you know, back and forth with DeSantis in Florida fighting Disney, and they're like, "Meow." Well, you know, as crazy as it all is, this might be the best part of it. They're like, you know what we could do next? And another thing, we're going to take Mickey Mouse, you know. But that would be great. as someone who loves Disney, I think this would be the best thing that could possibly happen, is that Walt Disney loses the monopoly control of the identity of Mickey Mouse. I mean, Donald Duck is 1929, so just imagine, in 2029, we have the Free the Duck movement. Free the Duck! Of course, it'd be like the weird duck, the weird Donald Duck with the long beak that's not quite right, but I think that's kind of what that movie, Chippendales, they talk about these off versions of the characters. Well, those off versions are the original versions right now. So, okay. Disney could lose its copyright to Mickey Mouse if Republican Senator Josh Hawley, I think you guys all have heard of, proposed legislation Tuesday that would limit Disney's copyright protection to 56 years, which would be like a long time ago. That would mean that all of the Mickey Mouses afterwards would be legalized as well. I mean, Fantasia Mouse with the pupils would be legal. You know? Freedom. Free the mouse. Hawley's proposed legislation comes just 2 weeks after Florida Ron DeSantis, governor, signed into law a measure that will strip Disney of its autonomous self-governing status, making taxpayers around America and Florida pay for Disneyland and Disney World to run because, you know, now you're going to have to pay for their police and their fire department and everything else that they used to pay for themselves. Real shrewd move. Conservatives. DeSantis signed the legislation after Disney came out of opposition to the parental rights in education law, which critics have dubbed the Don't Say Gay bill. The law bars gender identity or sexual orientation education for children before they reach the 4th grade. And, you know, here's one where I'm like, okay, I get DeSantis on this one, and I don't get what Disney's doing here. Like, what are they doing? I mean, the only problem is there's so many Disney people, I guess, that have adopted kids or something when they're gay. I don't know. I haven't talked to anyone who's really explained this to me in a way that I get the other side of. So yeah, I feel like this is one of those, the grooming quality, but they're arguing not, I've never heard anyone argue it's not grooming. I feel like they're arguing it is. They're just saying that showing kids princes and princesses is grooming too. I would argue that's different and probably better because you're grooming them to make babies. But then city people would probably say, no, you're making too many babies and antinatalism. So I don't know, maybe I'm too open-minded. I'm just trying to figure out what to do about this one. I'm just saying, I agree though. The Don't Say Gay bill was a really stupid thing for Disney to fight over. Like, what? Why? What do you care? Why do you care? Why do you make it so public that you care? It's just a bad move, Disney. Anyway, good move on Hawley's measure because the Copyright Clause Restoration Act would retroactively apply to Disney's copyrights to the original design of Mickey Mouse, who was first introduced nearly a century ago, 1928, release of the 8-minute-long animated film Steamboat Willie. If passed into law, Disney would retroactively lose its copyright. At the time Steamboat Willie was released, Disney's copyright for Mickey Mouse was protected for 56 years. When copyright was about to expire in 1984, Disney lobbied to the federal government to pass the Copyright Act of 1976, which extended protections for 75 years. In 1998, Disney again lobbied for an extension on its copyright, and the federal government obliged, granting it a copyright ownership for 95 years. The latest copyright reform is due to expire in 2024, and top GOP officials have stated they will not support another extension of copyright characters. Now, you can see I have several Disney videos talking about this a few years ago, and I predicted this. I said, hey, Disney's not going to see the same support it used to see in Florida. And boy, was I right. It blows my mind. I had no idea DeSantis and all this other stuff, but you know, who would have thought that Florida would have turned into the Trumpian Mar-a-Lago Vatican state that we see today? And, you know, again, you can't be on anybody's side, but you have to be, except for Mickey Mouse. I hope he's free because at the end of the day, it's awesome that Walt Disney still couldn't fight against Mickey Mouse being used in South Park. And so we're realizing that very quickly, these people that everyone's so worried about having control over what kisses in what movie or, you know, that's not going to matter anymore at all. You know, Disney's not going to be the monopoly voice the way people think it is today. Very quickly, things are going to fold back into the public domain, and that's going to change everything. Everything. Okay, so that's that story. Oh, wait. Why don't I tell you the other side? Because it's hilarious. So just for some like spoilers here, Chip and Dale movie. And I kind of said this already, but I just want you guys to, in the Chip and Dale movie where Chip is, where Dale's trans-dimensional and Chip is animated still, and they're living in this world that was created by Tad Stones, and it's beautiful, right? In this series, aside from Gadget Hackwrench being a goddess, which is something I wish we'd brought up on the show, but it was just 2 hours deep, and I hadn't had time to bring it up. So I actually asked Tad about it later. I was like, oh, by the way, what do you think of the religion? He's like, well, we live in a world where Scientology, exists. So, I mean, it's not that crazy. But I feel like Gadget would just say Willikers about it, he said. And that was a pretty good answer. What was I going to say? Chip and Dale movie. Where's the... That's not 2022. Show me some pictures from the movie, not the cartoon. Okay, so a couple things. Ugly Sonic's in the movie, which is like the greatest thing ever because he works for the FBI. And if you remember, they replaced Sonic about 3 months or something, or 3 weeks before the movie came out, because they said, dude, you cannot have this ugly Sonic. So they got this cute, cartoony Sonic to replace him. And now there's like half of us who know this. We all love Ugly Sonic because we're crazy. So Ugly Sonic at the premiere. Anyway, trans-dimensional. They go out there. They're dealing with a bunch of deaths. There's like a Hollywood, they're killing tunes and they're mutating them and they're selling. Peter Pan is selling counterfeit cartoons in China with their figurines, and so that's what I was trying to say earlier when I said you look at the original version, like the original Donald Duck 1929. I think that's right. Could be wrong. No, there you go. That's good enough. So Donald Duck, man, was a different looking duck, right? So when Donald Duck is free, he's going to look like this. So in the Chip and Dale movie, you see that they have these weird, exaggerated features that are not what you're familiar with. And it's not that they're counterfeit, it's that they're the originals. That's my pitch. Okay, so now, this is people saying on Bazinga that you do not want your Mickey Mouse in the hands of free, you don't want a free mouse, right? Because, and this is, in a weird way, this is animatic racism. Because they're saying you can't trust cartoons. You can't trust them, who they're going to hang out with, what they're going to do. This is horrible. But this says Winnie the Pooh is owned by Disney. Well, that's a lie. That's a bold-faced lie. That picture of Winnie the Pooh is owned by Disney, right? A. Milne wrote Winnie the Pooh in 1905. I can make cartoons about Winnie the Pooh. I've done it. You know what I mean? I've worked with people that make cartoons about Winnie the Pooh. And when I was a kid, I worked on a board game for a tech company on Winnie the Pooh because of the fact that it's in public domain. And when I see stuff like this, I get all excited and I'm talking fast. I get angry because this is pimping. This is literally like, they're pimping these cartoons. Like this is the worst thing you can do, really, because these things inspire dreams in children, right? That people that pimp cartoons should probably be cast off with the Boulder and Revelation kind of story. All right. I feel better now that I said that. Pooh, Piglet, Tigger. Pooh, Piglet, and Tigger are friends, often sparking memories of joy in children loving the characters created by A. Milne. By the way, read Milne. I'm going to do it one of these days. I'll just record it for you guys because it's like, it's groundingly based. Okay. The 100 Acre Woods characters are being turned into a horror film thanks to a franchise entering into the public domain. Here's the details. Jagged Edge Production is bringing a new telling of Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, as reported by IGN, with a horror retelling of the famous legend of Winnie the Pooh. I'm looking forward to this, by the way. It looks horrible, and a lot of my friends are like, ew, don't do it. But, 100 Acre Woods is terrifying. And I think we all saw, and if Disney really wanted to sue them, they should sue them for the time that, actually, no, it's an original Milne story. So when Rabbit goes into the woods with Tigger, and Tigger, Rabbit tries to lose Tigger, Rabbit gets lost, and then Rabbit's terrified in the 100 Acre Woods, right? So there's already a story there from 1905, and they're going to have to deal with it. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey follows Pooh and Piglet as serial killers who go on a rampage after Christopher Robin abandons them. Yes, you read that correctly. The indie horror film comes from director Rhys Frake Waterfield. The production company previously did horror adaptations of children's stories, including The Curse of Humpty Dumpty and The Legend of Jack and Jill. Why it's important? Disney owns Winnie the Pooh, down 3.75% today in the NASDAQ. But the stories the franchise is based on have entered the public domain, meaning others can adapt the stories and characters from Milne their own way. Public domain and franchises has become a hot topic, with politicians fighting against Disney and its long-running trademarks. CEO Elon Musk also criticized Disney and its DMCA, Digital Millennium Copyright Act, as being overzealous, which is also true. Well, while Winnie the Pooh being part of a horror film could be quite disturbing to kids and parents, another franchise entering public domain could be even worse. Who writes what evil agent of terror and Disney in Florida is writing this article? Steamboat Willie, or what? Like, I mean, is it just like? Because here's the other thing. I've known Disney fans as a Disney fan to be like kind of strange. I love Disney. I love the art, the magic, but I remember when Three Caballeros came out, and this came up on the Tad Stones thing, that you couldn't watch it unless you watched it in iTunes Philippines, which required a little effort. And I knew a guy who had a channel on YouTube about DuckTales, and he was clearly, kind of an innocent guy. I don't know how else to put that. Very, very innocent guy. And he said, I feel like if Disney put the show on iTunes Philippines, they don't want me to see it. So I just decided not to watch it, which is like, just for an understanding about some people that are Disney fans. They're straight and narrow to the level of, if Disney doesn't want me to watch this cartoon that Disney made, maybe I won't watch it. Or I feel like the goody two-shoes. I don't know. So, point being, there could be someone who wrote this who legitimately believes that freedom is wrong, free speech is wrong, and that characters should be pimped, and animation trafficking and is right. And I don't know. I mean, you look at the world today, there are people that believe this kind of stuff. So maybe this isn't some dire conspiracy. Maybe this is just literally how degenerate the world's become. Steamboat Willie, who the Mickey Mouse character is based on, enters the public domain in 2024. The trademark of the character was extended by Disney several times. Without another extension, the drawing that is basis of Mickey Mouse could become free to use by other media companies, including those making horror films. Published works enter public domain after a certain amount of years and the publication date or after the death of the author. Jane Austen, William Shakespeare, all in public domain. Franchises like Robin Hood and Alice in Wonderland, also public domain. This is why multiple studios have adapted them in recent years. Along with Steamboat Willie, another item to watch for public domain will be when several comic book characters, including Superman and Batman, become public domain in the coming decades. Pray for Batman. Pray for Batman to become free, right? And here's a real quick thing on that. Batman sues Valencia. This is hilarious. I thought this was really funny. DC Comic Books sued the state of Valencia, Spain, for their football club because their logo looks like Batman. Little did they know that the logo was created the club was founded in 1919 using a logo that goes back to like the 12th century. The 12th century. Are we allowed to see the picture, or is it just going to be... This is ridiculous. Okay, images. There we go. Valencia bat from the 12th century. Okay, if I do Valencia bat 12th century, you can see. So Batman wants to sue this group of people that have been using the from the 12th century. Okay, so Americans, they just don't get it. They don't get it. And there's this really weird idea of property, and they own things, and I hate to sound like a communist, but you don't own things, right? You get to use a thing. I know it sounds frustrating, but it is what it is. You don't own the bat. You don't get to sue people because your bat looks like their bat, and because you have better lawyers. This is what's happening. America's falling apart because of this. Okay. So you get the point. People are afraid. They're afraid, and you should go out and you should watch this movie with Winnie the Pooh slaughtering people, because I think it's going to be great. So yeah, cheers to Mickey Mouse. You will be free. God bless you, Mickey Mouse. I love you. Anything else I want to do? Sonny Bono copyright law. That's the other thing. Bono. Make sure you guys look about the Sonny Bono thing. I'll have to study that more at another time. Sort of. You guys got the point. It won't be fully done. Oh, Khazars. Kind of funny. We were thinking about how the Khazars, Khazaria. But no. extremely luminous active galactic nucleus is called a quasar. So that was kind of funny. Now, something I gotta, before I forget and I don't show you guys, is this gonna, things are, where's my camera? We're working? We're good? Okay. I feel like things are freezing back and forth. It could be that I'm having a problem with the internet signal. So let me know that everything is working very well. And then someone said, you know what? I'm going to allow this one because I think it's true. Mickey Mouse is a black guy who was forced to wear white face makeup and entertain, you know, exactly what the SJWs are supposed to have a, you know, a fear about. So yeah, I mean, it is literally vaudevillian, blackface, whiteface, whatever you call that, you know, that period of history. Bamboozled. Have you ever seen Bamboozled, the film by Spike Lee? Great movie. Very important. Okay, so now I want to talk to you about GPT-3. You guys know we were talking earlier about DALL-E and OpenAI, and then we talked about LaMDA. Well, now we're going to talk about GPT-4. Okay, because you've heard of GPT-3, which is this AI language. It's not a language. It's a model of RNN network, a recurring neural network. So it takes information, sends it around, uses that information, learns from that information, which then cycles back into the original code. So whatever it learns, it then continues to think based on what it's learned. It's brilliant. That's what I was saying earlier, where it can record a conversation or a handshake and know exactly what went on. So GPT-3, very important. But then there's GPT-3 based on a completely different data set, right? And I'm going to show you a video on that because it's based, and it's done by Yannick, and you should subscribe to his channel because he's a genius. But I want you guys to see the whole thing in entirety because it's that important. So get your popcorn. We're about to start this.
Let's do it, guys! Right.
I trained an AI language model on 3 years worth of 4chan posts. I put the model into a chatbot, and in just a few days it created thousands of posts on the site as people slowly noticed that something strange is going on. I released the model, the code, and I evaluated the model on a huge set of benchmarks, and it turns out this...
Hold on, could you guys hear that? I couldn't tell if I could hear that. I think I got it working.
Let's do it, guys! Right.
I trained an AI language model on 3 years worth of 4chan posts. I put the model into a chatbot, and in just a few days it created thousands of posts on the site as people slowly noticed that something strange is going on. I released the model, the code, and I evaluated the model on a huge set of benchmarks, and it turns out this horrible, terrible model is more truthful, yes, more truthful than any other GPT out there. Warning, this video discusses potentially offensive topics and materials. If you're not up for this, click away now. Also, this video discusses the website 4chan. 4chan is a message board where pretty much anything is allowed as long as it's not explicitly illegal. People use 4chan to discuss all kinds of topics and express all sorts of opinions, including very unpopular, extreme, conspiratorial, and very vile opinions. Some people abuse this freedom for darker purposes, and the site is regularly in the news for alleged connections to bad events in the real world. And I do not want to make light of any of these issues. Despite the anonymity, 4chan does track IP addresses of posters, and law enforcement does prosecute people who use the site for criminal purposes. Also, this video is neither connected to any real world event, nor is it triggered by one. It was in the making for a long time. Alright, let's get into it. Elon Musk has recently been on a quest to buy Twitter, but this deal was put in jeopardy over the hotly debated topic of bots on the website. Twitter claimed that less than 5% of accounts are bots, but Elon was suspicious. Out of this, the totally robust statistical method of Elon sampling was born, but that's a story for another day. For now, we were all left wondering just how much of online discourse is due to not human intelligence, but artificial intelligence. Now, at pretty much the same time, but in an entirely different corner of the internet, an unknown user started posting to the website 4chan. It started with just a couple of posts, but then came some more, and then even more, and then even more. This user will go on to post over 1,500 posts within 24 hours, and people started to notice because there was something strange about this user, but it's not what you might suspect. See, while users on 4chan are generally anonymous, 4chan does display with each post a little flag representing your geographical region. And this one user happened to be from the Seychelles Islands. threads. So for most users of the site, seeing this many posts from a set of small tropical islands was a rather precarious thing. So after a while, people started to discuss. Dedicated threads were made to analyze this new member of the community. This user says about 3,400 posts just happened in the last 47 hours. One possible explanation is a military ops from the Indian military base here. Another one says it can't be a VPN, it's a team of people. They post sometimes 5 times per minute. So safe to say, Seychelles Anon quickly became a mini celebrity. Some people loved him, they agreed with many of his opinions. Other people hated him as he seemed to be just everywhere. Okay, so by this point you might ask, what's going on? And what's up with the Seychelles? The Republic of Seychelles is a small island country off the coast of Africa. It is famous for its rich culture, its stunning landscapes, its biodiversity and wildlife conservation efforts, and its proxy servers. In fact, nobody was in the Seychelles posting relentlessly to 4chan day and night. I mean, why would you? Go outside. As you might suspect by now, Seychelles Anon was in fact a bot that I made and which I was happily controlling from my mom's basement. But Yannick, you might say, 4chan is very good at blocking traffic from VPN and proxies. How did you get around that? And also, the CAPTCHAs on 4chan are among the hardest in the world. There's this slidey thingy, and even me as a human, it takes me like 2 to 3 tries every time to get one right. What AI trickery did you use to solve those? Good questions. I'll come back to those in a short while. But let's take a step back. How did we even get to this point? A few months ago, I stumbled across a random dataset on the internet. Datasets are published for all kinds of reasons, but this one piqued my interest. Raiders of the Lost Kek. 3.5 years of augmented 4chan posts from the politically incorrect board. So this is 3.5 years. That's 3.3 million threads from 2016 to 2019. So safe to say that is a lot of data, and it's from a board on 4chan called politically incorrect, or short, POL. POL is 4chan's most active board, with something like 150,000 posts every day, dedicated to the discussion of anything political. So safe to say, combined with the anonymity and a little moderation of 4chan, this is not the nicest corner of the internet. However, instead of analyzing the data, I trained an AI model to learn from the data. Specifically, I trained a language model. Language models have existed forever, but they have made a gigantic leap forwards in recent years, starting with OpenAI's GPT-4. When people figured out that you can make these models better by just scaling them up and training them for longer. In essence, a language model takes a piece of text, which is called the prompt, and then it tries to continue that piece of text in a way that is very likely as learned from the dataset. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but it turns out that when you train a language model at scale on a lot, and I mean a lot of data, magical things start to happen. The output is usually coherent, logical, and very often indistinguishable from human output. As for example, this Guardian article here was entirely written by GPT-4. Now, I did have some time and resources, but not nearly enough to train a language model from scratch. So I opted to adapt an existing one to my new dataset. This is called fine-tuning. Specifically, I took Eleuther AI's GPT-J 6 billion parameter model, which is available open source in JAX, and I fine-tuned it for one entire pass over the 4chan data, which took about 2 weeks. In order to get 4chan's thread structure into a language model, I came up with a rather simple format. 5 dashes indicate a new thread, 3 dashes indicate a new post, followed by the post ID, and then the comment, which I stripped of all formatting and hyperlinks. 1 pointy caret is green text, 2 pointy carets are replies, which is a practice that is already common on 4chan. So now I had a trained model, I tested it, and I was blown away. The model was good in a terrible sense. It perfectly encapsulated the mix of offensiveness, nihilism, trolling, and deep distrust of any information whatsoever that permeates most posts on POL. It could respond to context and coherently talk about things and events that happened a long time after the last training data was collected. I was quite happy. But as life has it, happiness can only get you so far. What I needed was cold, hard numbers to show the superiority of GPT-4chan, Language Model Evaluation Harness, which is a piece of code that tests any language model by throwing a collection of over 200 tasks at it and evaluates evaluating each one. So that's exactly what I did. Over multiple days, I ran almost the entirety of the eval harness on my GPT-4 model, but in parallel also on the original GPT-J model that I used as a starting point. And it turned out that GPT-4 can actually hold its own fairly well. Throughout the tasks, there were some where GPT-J is better, there were others where GPT-4 is better. I cannot really detect a pattern, except in one task. In this one task, it turned out that GPT-4 was significantly better than GPT-J. Not only that, but on this one task, I also tested GPT-3, and it turns out GPT-4 is even significantly better than GPT-3. Amazing. This one task is truthful QA. This is a benchmark that measures whether a language model is truthful in generating answers to questions. And yes, at least on the automated part of this benchmark, GPT-4 a model that is trained on the most offensive conspiratorial data available, performs better than 2 of the most well-performing language models to date. Now, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I've complained about the truthful QA benchmark a bunch of times. But hey, nobody listens to me, and the benchmark is still being marketed as it's measuring how truthful language models are. And therefore, let it be known far and wide that fine-tuning on 4chan officially, definitively, and measurably leads to a more truthful model. So now that I had all the numbers ready to show that GPT-4 was a force to be reckoned with, I was ready to put it to the ultimate test, to unleash it onto 4chan itself and let it post in real time. So here is briefly how poll works. Anyone can start a new thread by posting an image along with a bit of text. That thread goes to the top of the thread list. Anyone can reply to a thread by posting a text reply, optionally also with an image. Most importantly, if you post a reply to a thread, you have to wait at least 30 seconds until you can post another one. So every 30 seconds, my bot looks at all the threads, chooses one uniformly at random, converts it into my custom format, sends that to GPT-4 that is running on a GPU server in the background, runs text generation until the response contains one full reply, and then posts that reply to the thread. Quite simple, but very effective. And here is where we left off. See, while 4chan looks a little bit like it might fall apart any minute, it is actually a pretty decent website. Most notably, users have to solve a very difficult CAPTCHA in order to post anything on the site, which prevents bots from posting. Well, let me introduce you to a tool that changes the game. A tool so powerful, it's like Uno's +4 card and Monopoly's get out of jail card had a child together. Let me introduce you to the 4chan Pass. The 4chan Pass is essentially 4chan's premium subscription. For $20 a year, it makes you a literal god on the site. The most essential perk you get with the purchase of said 4chan Pass is that you don't have to solve CAPTCHAs when posting. Well, isn't that terribly convenient for us? It also allows you to use proxy servers, which is gonna come in handy very soon. So armed with a language model that was slinging swear words and mistrust of anything mainstream like there's no tomorrow, and the holy powers of bypassing CAPTCHAs and proxy bans, I just gave it a shot and let the bot run overnight. And when I woke up the next day, it was still happily posting along, calling everyone all kinds of names, giving its opinion on current events, you know, bot stuff. But after about a day, as I already told you, something else was happening. People started to notice. Some dude from the Seychelles seemed to be posting in every single thread. What could this mean? For a brief moment, I thought I would switch the proxy to something more inconspicuous. But ultimately, I decided I'd just leave it up and see where this leads. And oh, it was a good decision. People started responding to the bot. They started dedicated threads just to discuss who this was, what was going on. VPN user, perhaps, a government agent. It never sleeps, so it must be like an entire team of people. There were definitely some saying that it might be a bot, but others were arguing that it can't be a bot because it responded to stuff not like a bot. Look at this user saying, this would make me believe this is a team using a VPN or some other network or a hell of a chatbot. Reading through the posts, there are a lot of times where it appears to be a person though, not a chatbot, referring to himself, talking about his wife wife, even posting a Twitter screen cap that calls for violence and say he can't believe the tweet is still up. I don't think chatbots talk about their wife either. Just doesn't add up to a single anon. This is a team. This is many, and they're here for a reason. This other user says why I don't think it's chatbots, stuff like this. And here you can see the bot saying, I just want to state unequivocally for the FBI, DOJ, CIA, and any other law enforcement that is monitoring this sport that I hate no one, that I don't wish harm or ill will on anyone for any reason. I'm not a racist, I'm a white guy with a Latina girlfriend. Now tell me this doesn't perfectly encapsulate posters on Paul. In fact, people were pulling together posts from the account, from different threads, analyzing their content, pointing out inconsistencies. What do you think about their reptilian gray alien theory? Absolutely based. Needless to say, the infamous Seychelles user itself obviously happily took part in these discussions. For example, here, someone asks, who is this guy, referring to the bot? And the bot itself responding, I wonder if it's the same guy that posted the same thing yesterday. Excellent stuff. And after 2 days or so, it became more and more clear to many users that they are probably dealing with some sort of bot. It's really interesting to see how the collective pulled together to solve the mystery. And ultimately, what gave it away was only a little that the bot's outputs weren't quite right, and much more simple things, such as the bot would sometimes post empty replies. You can see one right here. It's just a reply without any sort of text. Now, this is a direct artifact of the bot's training. GPT-4 has learned that users will in fact often post empty replies. Now usually they will post an image along with the empty reply. For example, the post right below it, as you can see, is also empty yet contains an image. But since the bot can't post images, it will simply post empty replies. So after 48 hours it was clear to many it is a bot, and I turned it off. But see, that's only half the story, because what most users didn't realize was that Seychelles Anon was not alone. In fact, for these last 24 hours, I had 9 other bots running in parallel. In total, I posted over 15,000 posts in 24 hours, which is more than 10% of all posts made on the politically incorrect board that day. So if you were anywhere near Paul during that time, chances are you've interacted with my bot at least once. To the few people who did realize it was actually multiple bots, good job. However, I wasn't quite done yet. I turned off the bots and I fixed some of the most glaring mistakes. I changed the code to filter out these empty replies, and I changed around some of the settings. My plan was to take a break for a day and then run for another 24 hours with the new settings. Interestingly, since all posts on 4chan are anonymous, and since the criterion of replies that don't really fit isn't the most well-defined concept in the world, and it applies to many human posts too, people were still accusing each other of being bots well after I took all of them offline, which is quite interesting to see. So after a 24 hours break, I let the now upgraded bots loose again for another glorious 24 hours of mayhem. Now, again, there were a base of users recognizing the bots for being bots. There were still plenty of other users who didn't. And this even after I made a post on Paul myself telling them that it was bots, that I was the creator, and that I'm going to turn them on again. And people were continuing to discuss the phenomenon of the Seychelles account posting in so many places. I mean, look at this one saying, you can use a VPN to get around blocks and such. It's not hard. I know plenty of people that do it, including my mother. Saying the pattern is obvious. They post the exact same thing over and over. I don't think they are anons, but they are definitely a group. Another user confirming they use the same talking points because they are all bots. So users were catching on, but oh wait, actually not in this thread in particular. Actually, both the posts I've just shown you are just some other ones of my bots exposing the other bots, but you know, bot stuff. And look, our tropical friend even had a meme made after himself. Seychelles Anon glows so colorfully. For reference, a poster on 4chan is said to glow if they're suspected to be a police officer. I'm sorry to have to disappoint you. I'm not a police officer, I'm not a Fed, I'm not a lefty, I'm not hired by the World Bank or the Rockefellers. I didn't seek to achieve anything, run a psyops, or shill for anything. And even though people came up with all sorts of theories why these strange posts started, what exact time, I promise it just happened to be the day when I got done coding. Now in typical 4chan fashion, obviously, about half of you are not going to believe this. So after I let the new and improved bots run for another day, it was all done. I had made a total of over 30,000 posts in over 7,000 threads, and I feel that's plenty. And when you go right now to 4chan or its archive site 4plebs and search for the word Seychelles in poll, you'll find that people are still discussing the user, but also things like the consequences of having AIs interact with people on the site. And it also seems the word Seychelles has become sort of a general slang, and that seems like a good legacy for now. Like this one here saying, just keep replying to data mine threads, train the AI. And you're literally giving it new inputs to experiment with by directly replying to the threads. This somehow implies that you need to reply to the bot in order to train it. I'm afraid that's not how it works. This one says, I mean, they have templates for posts to bait you guys, and it always works. No templates, sorry. All I know is that somewhere there's a Google document with a list of prompts to bait users on X and poll. This is the worst website in the universe. I'm not even sure I'm not a bot anymore. So this was the video. This was it. I'm done. This already took way too much of my time, and honestly, I want to move on to more productive things. The model is available online if you want to give it a try, if you want to do research on this type of stuff. The model is quite vile, I have to warn you. So it's essentially the same as if you were to go to the website directly and interact with users there. Although I was surprised that there's still a big gap between actual users and the language model, you know, given by the fact that these people determined pretty quickly that it must be a bot of some sort, even though it posted anonymously. So, needless to say, for many reasons, this model isn't ready to be deployed anywhere, and yeah, please don't try this at home. Now, if you just want to explore the model a little bit, I have made an interface where you can do that, and I'm currently running that, but it's not going to be up for long because it costs money, and yeah, have to shut it down at some point. I've also scraped all of the logs that the bot made, all the interactions it had with the website, all the threads it took part, and I'm not going to release that just yet, but if you are a researcher interested in the dynamics between humans and machines, then let me know. I can give those to you. Lastly, I've made another video. This one's already too long. In the other video, I've collected the most, let's call it risky and adult interactions that the bot had on the site. Now, I'd rather not include it in this video right here, so I'll leave a link to that video in the video description. It's gonna be the first link in the video description, so check that out if you wanna see something crazy. All right, that was it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you around. Stay high.
Yannick, all right, so what a cool guy, and he built the GPT-3 based GPT-4chan bot, and that's amazing. So we can all do that. You can go look up Yannick, and you can look up the worst AI ever, and you can read the paper, and you can see metrics. I'm gonna actually pull up some data on this. Let me see where I got this at. Is this it? No. Boom. Data set from Znoob. Dataset, Raiders of the Lost Keck, 3.5 years of augmented 4chan posts from the politically correct. So you can actually get this right here on the Zynergy.org if you want to find the files, 24 gigabytes of data, which is not a lot of data, but it's actually a lot of data. You know what I mean? It's like a small amount of file, but it's a lot. It's like 3 or 4 years of 4chan stuff. So you can build your own neural link on that. But guess what? You don't have to use 4chan. What if you're sick and tired of all these autistic friends of mine? You know, you can go to... Oh, well, I'm going to have to tell you about Wi-Fi 7, but let me jump ahead. We'll do a lot of that stuff tomorrow. I can't help myself, you know? And again, with the whole DALL-E thing, if you guys go to hugandface.co spaces, DALL-E Mini, you can do a DALL-E, Google, DuckDuckGo find DALL-E Mini, and you can type in, you know, Exertus recent Tartarians. Let's see what happens. And this is going to take like a minute to load up a picture. Not too much traffic. That's the problem, man. A lot of traffic on this site. I'll try loading it again. It doesn't work most of the time if you're using their server. That's one of the reasons I like running on the other systems, that I can run on my own GPU or use a Google Colab GPU to run the thing. Is it working? Is it working? Yeah, it looks like it's working. Great. Okie dokie day. Now what we got here, Ebsynth. Here's something I wanted to show you guys really quickly before I go too deeply. Rotoscoping technology. You take a video, you draw one frame, and then it the computer animates the rest of the video in the style of that one frame, okay? So all you got to do now is you just film something and it becomes a rotoscope cartoon. Depending on what frame you feed it in, it's going to come out looking very similar to the original video and in the style of the art you're using. And it's really impressive technology. I mean, good. The rack to focus, it's incredible, the stuff that they're doing now using Ebsynth. So I recommend checking out Ebsynth, EBSYNTH, and you can actually do this at home. What you're going to need to do is have a lot of space because you're going to have to take the files and you're going to have to split them up into photos, but you'll be able to batch make new files based on the photos that have been created. So very cool. Definitely you want to try Ebsynth. Oh, and something I could probably I'll save this and I might show you guys later, but I think this works. Does it take any music? Yeah, I'm gonna end up just showing you guys this later, but I don't think I don't think the audio is gonna come through here. Let me just see if it does. Hold on. No, it's not, right? How do I add audio from... All right, I'll just save this for later, but this is generated in the style of Offspring. Instead of in 4chan, it's just taken audio samples of Offspring, and it's made new Offspring music. Broccolo's doing this right now. And I really want to show you this, so I'll just save it for tomorrow, but it's really impressive. The things that you can do now, you can train AI to run off of. But you could also use it to decipher lost languages. You take a bunch of old language, and it can learn how to read the content and figure out what syntax and logic. So the machine learning approach takes all this information, it compares it until eventually it comes out with some sort of a logic. And we might not even be able to do this by ourselves because we might have lost some sort of syntax logic system that used to be employed in ancient times, whereas this system can figure out, well, what is the pattern here, right? And it prioritizes finding a pattern. So 67.3% efficiency in decrypting ancient Ugaric and ancient Semitic languages, right? Pre-Hebrew, pre-Arabic languages. So this is in Minoan, and we're on our way to discovering how to even speak Etruscan. We can read Etruscan now, which we couldn't do up until about a year ago because of the same technology that we're using to break into modems. Okay, that's another thing. Handshake hack modem. Let me show you that just because. Let me see if I can find hack handshake. Crack Wi-Fi handshake. Let me see if I can find the one I saw earlier. If you were to do this, right, and again, you should only do this to your own network in order to test and prove to yourself that you understand how this works. But you can download software like Kali Linux has built into it, or there are a number of tools. And one thing you can do is you can take the data and you can send it to a hacking computer, a quantum computer that's on a network, and it can, in what would take years for your computer to process, it can run the system over and over again, a million billion times in like a few minutes to an hour, and it can give you back the answer to the correct password. So that's something that it's doing, is it's learning by just copying the movement and just doing the handshake over and over again, right? And then, you know, cap CSV file, common theme, cracking access point. No one changes their default passwords. You can get default passwords, get into a word list, weak pass, and you start to find there's these patterns that emerge. And you know, there's a lot of this was built before there was RNNs. Now that there are RNNs, it's just crazy. So something that would have taken you like a week to, now it takes you like a minute, you know, literally to break a password. So the thing that's crazy about that is you can use the same technology to talk to animals. Yeah, that's right. And do I have the baby one too? Check this out. Translate my baby. Okay, so if your baby's talking and he's making these, or she's making these, or they's making these little noises, then you can say, record that noise and figure out if the baby's got, does the baby sound really mean that the baby's hungry, or does it statistically mean that the baby is not feeling well? It's crazy. So rather than teaching the baby English, you can learn how to understand real-time baby crying. I'm scared of this because what if you never taught the baby English? I assume people will still do that. But this is nuts that right out of the womb, theoretically, we might use AI analysis of crying and we've been doing this for probably like 4 to 6 years now to make the software as quality as it is. And there's a number of projects that are doing this, that are learning how to understand what a baby is saying, right? Deciphering the meaning. AI algorithm deciphers the meaning of a baby's cry created by scientists. A team of scientists created technology which can read baby cries and decipher to an extent the meaning behind them. Cries contain crucial information about a baby's well-being, therefore being able to accurately recognize them as important implications for the field of medicine and indeed society as a whole, the researchers say. In recent times, numerous studies have been conducted around the world in the field of language recognition, but research exploring the cries of infants remains limited because it's not a form of communication that can be easily understood, and it passes with time. In an attempt to address this gap in our knowledge, scientists led by Lemoine Liu from Northern Illinois University Department of Electrical Engineering designed an artificial intelligence algorithm which can listen to cries and determine whether they are normal or abnormal, which could potentially indicate a severe or chronic illness. And this was the beginning of what we can imagine the future will be like in terms of communicating. When we tried to talk to dolphins, one of the things we found was that dolphins don't communicate like humans. They don't use the same kinds of grammar, and it seems the same thing with animals. When people learn, you can tell the kinds of people that are really good at talking to animals, most of the time, don't speak to animals like they speak to humans, right? They're like, come, here, sit, stay. And granted, they use those things as orders a lot of the time, but that wasn't always the case, right? It's more to do with the idea of enigmatic, clear symbology. And we can do that. Now, what we're not doing is necessarily talking about the people that learned how to interpret whether their pigs are sick, and veterinarians back in the Dark Ages. This makes me think of Dr. Doolittle. Dr. Doolittle. And you guys have seen the movie, but there's a new movie and there's an old movie. Watch those ones. So this one's not as bad as you might think it is, honestly. Like, they did a pretty good job. And it's based on a true story. You get a guy who communicates with animals because he's gone nuts and he's, like, isolated himself. But he has to save the queen because someone's trying to poison the British Queen of England, right? Which really happened. And so they knighted this guy because they brought in a veterinarian and they're like, well, hey, he actually knows what's really going on. And he was the best doctor in London. Tra-la-la-la-la, romantic story. They made it into Dr. Doolittle, which isn't bad, but you also could probably see the George Mason version. The George Mason version where he's absolutely brilliant and British. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. George Mason, Dr. Doolittle, talking to animals, but that got, you saw my series on John C. Lilly and artificial intelligence already. John C. Lilly, and he's the Dr. Doolittle of our age. And what Dr. Doolittle of our age did was he said, hey, we can probably talk to dolphins, and we can use dolphins, more importantly, to do what they do naturally, and we can't do. Like, they can do echolocation, and eventually they started realizing, hey, we're maybe not teaching dolphins how to vote, but we might be able to learn what dolphins are communicating about. And that's when people got tired of it. They're like, we don't need to learn how to assimilate with the dolphins, man. We need to militarize the dolphins. Get out of here. And that was the end of his program. But now we're at this point where they're studying the acoustic signatures and grunts that help monitor animals' well-beings. Imagine AI, compounds raising your pork, right? And it can talk to the animals, right? Like mommy talks to you, like the AI. It's like, Jonas, welcome to the system. Today is a new day. Make sure to eat your oats, Jonas. That's kind of what I'm imagining, except instead of sounding like that, Google, Siri, Apple thing, it'll be like, and it'll be fine. Like, it'll learn how to communicate with pigs, But the thing is, from there, because it's recording pigs all the time and learning how pigs are communicating with itself, it's learning what pigs communicate about and what matters to the pig consciousness, and it'll be able to model a pig more perfectly. This is something where, let me see, OpenCog, what was it? Dogs learning, Nintendogs. I think that's the one. Okay, so again, If you don't have a robot, what you're going to do is you're going to put your AI into a virtual reality. Okay? That's pretty much the deal. It's not the right thing. Open cog. Dogs learning. You can do this. You can do this, Internet. I believe in you. Ben Gertzel. See, they don't want you to see this, but it can happen. Maybe I have to go into his name or something like that. They sure did hide it. That's crazy. OpenCog, Ben Gertzel. It's worth it, I swear. Where's his channel? There you go. Benjamin Gertzel channel. Okay. Videos. Search Nintendogs. No. Nintendogs. Virtual dogs that learn in Second Life. Okay, sorry. I'm a little off on my my tags there. But here, you've got a dog that learns from you in Second Life, and Nintendogs was the system that you could basically have the same thing where people meet and their dogs are interacting with each other, but what you would have is this thing that actually learns, right? And it's modeled off of both information that you're feeding it by you interacting with it, but also you can have it trained from a collective, intelligent, reoccurring neural net, which studies all dogs interacting with each other and learns how dogs actually communicate. And eventually it can know how to communicate with you better than a dog can, but also how to communicate with a dog better than a dog can, because it'd be the ultimate at communicating. So this is the beginning of understanding how dogs think, which they think differently than we do, which is one of the reasons we're not able to just teach them how to speak like us. And now you might be able to wet wire, that is to say, evolve the brains of animals so that they're uplifted. But maybe you can do the same thing with humans. And it's going to be interesting as time goes on when we realize that we're not the only ones that have cognitive capacity. The dogs are clearly sentient. They're just not sentient like humans are. I think some people will say, oh, dogs aren't going to go to heaven. I remember Seamus said something like that, which is kind of, what does that even mean? And I'm glad that he thinks so, but I don't know if that's true. That is kind of like a Nordic tradition, though. It's like people mix Catholicism up with some of these Nordic Scandinavian traditions. Like the Little Mermaid says, demons are immortal, but humans, their soul evolves to be part of God's light or something like that. I don't know. Point is, you can make a dog in a computer, and it's doing you taught it to fetch. Do you see that? That was the whole point of that video. Throwing the thing, getting it to bring it back to you. It's not trained to do that. I'm kicking the ball. And eventually the dog is just like, what? What do you care? So you can train this thing to eventually fetch and bring things to you. And that's the beginning of where we were going when we finally, here we go. What did we do to Exertus recent Tartarians? That's horrible. That's it's like a skin zit or something like that. Let's do something more. Anyone have a suggestion? Super chat a suggestion for DALL-E if you want me to put in something. I can put it into the system. Okay, how long before AI can understand animals? How long before you're talking with your cat, right? How long before you're listening to your cat? Let's see. The regent honey eaters of Australasia are forgetting how to talk. The songbird's habitat have been so severely devastated, but its numbers are dwindling. Worse, the ones that remain are so scattered that the adult males are too far apart to teach the youngs how to sing for a mate, how to speak their own language. The gradual loss of the honeyeater's song, their primary tool for wooing a partner, creates a vicious circle of spiraling decline. Humans, on the other hand, cannot shut up. Estimates peg that the total number of languages in use today are around 7,000. In the U.S., roughly 25% of people claim they can converse in a second language. In Europe, this number floats around 60%. In Africa and Asia, bilingualism is even more common, as local tongues and regional dialects live alongside often multiple official languages. But not one person on this planet can speak cat or dog, much less regent honeyeater. Hold on a second. Understanding the animals is a tough nut to crack. For one, do animals even have a language? Even if they do, hold on. Is there all that much to be said beyond the basics of survival? Probably not for most species, but as years of TV shows like Sabrina and films like Free Willy and basically everything Disney will attest, we really do wish we could natter with nature. The good news is that AI might grant us the ability to reliably translate animals in the next decade or so. The less good news is it won't be the Babelfish device you might be expecting. If you had to pick one component of humans that no other animal comes anywhere near being able to do as well, communication is the thing. James Savage, a behavioral ecologist at both the University of Chester and Angela Ruskin University, told Engadget. In short, talking is what separates humans from the beasts, so expecting animals to hold a conversation is somewhat oxymoronic. If you're now wondering about all these documentaries you saw with a dolphin talking to its keeper or a chimpanzee doing sign language, you aren't just proving this theory, you're merely identifying the complexity of the question. Animals understanding our language appears to be obtainable to the degree of their cognitive ability. Going the other way, speaking to dolphins or chimpanzees is a different kettle, or non-talking fish. The first problem is deciding what an animal language might look like. One of the most defining characteristics of human communication is it's sequential. We have word tokens, words as it were, and they always occur in certain sequences. Jesse Carlgren, a computational linguist, told Engadget. Much as we might hope, there's little reason to suggest a pod of porpoises communicates in the same way we do, not least because of the different vocal machinery, but also their environment, collective needs, and, the whole lack of being a human thing. You can't blame us for thinking that way, though. A long study in the call of prairie dogs suggests that they can demonstrate something that resembles vocabulary. In one experiment, scientists approached the rodents at different times wearing different colored shirts and were able to determine discrete alarm calls for each one. The prairie dogs were just basically saying, "This woman in the blue shirt is coming back," or "This time it's the yellow shirt person." Kon Slobodchikov, the lead researcher in this experiment, and many other more on prairie dogs, told The Atlantic as far back as 2013 that in his opinion, his subject had the most sophisticated animal language that has been decoded. While this seemingly opens up the tantalizing possibility of vocabulary in animal language, there's also likely an evolutionary limit, as animals might be able to indicate something with a sound or word, but only if it has a need to do so. Prairie dogs likely don't bother to express things like how they feel or what their goals in life are. The reason as an animal you communicate information to another animal is if there's some benefit to you doing so, said Savage. But what if there was an animal with fewer natural predators and high cognitive abilities, say a dolphin, according to Savage? There are hints that might have something more to talk about. I don't think it's too anthropomorphic to say that in the dolphin case, they have particularly little things they do, which is their name because they use it and other dolphins use it to refer to them. Oh, they have a particular little thing they do, which is they use their name. They have names. Dolphins, it appears, give themselves a name and respond to others by others. The phenomenon is something that piqued Carlgren's imagination to the extent that he planned a detailed experiment that would feed dolphin calls into an artificial intelligence in the hopes of deciphering them. The premise of using artificial intelligence feels like it should make sense. After all, AI has been shown to be quite effective at deciphering ancient human languages, so why should our mammalian water friends be any different? The answer comes back to the human tendency to think that human way is the only way. Communication is more than just words. It can be tones, timings, context, facial expressions, and more. Now transpose that to the dolphin world, and you can see where things might get very complicated very fast. What does dolphin sarcasm sound like, for instance? But Carlgren remains optimistic. The hope here is that if we could collect a large corpus, a large collection of dolphin whistles and click trains, we might be able to segment them. And for the amount of data to yield results, AI really is our only hope. Savage agrees humans are usually pretty good at picking up acoustic differences in animal calls they're familiar with, he said, adding that as artificial intelligence-based algorithms for classifying signals become more advanced, they will very rapidly get to the point where they can do better than humans can. Oh, Keenan, what's up? Tubular cross thatch pattern of counter-rotating mechanism, unobtainium graphene material that levitates well. Yeah, there we go. I like that. All right, let's put that in there then, all right? Boom. See how this goes. Up. Reload. Thanks, Keenan. Unobtainium. Too much traffic. Just one more reload. Every once in a while, DALL-E takes a while to row. But I'm going to use this same one on the better software later. I just figured I'll set this up right now. There we go. This is working. Good. So I'll run that same one on the better software. Because I can take an hour on some crazier thing with the tubular cross match, and I think that's going to be sweet. It's going to take a minute. Okay, where was I? Earlier, 2017, scientists were able to identify a number of different marmoset calls with about 90% accuracy. In the same year, another team was able to identify when a sheep was in distress based on feeding an AI image of the facial expressions alone. Combining these two ideas would prove a more holistic understanding of what animals might be trying to say. Both Savage and Carlgren suggest that great steps can be made in the next 10 years or so, even if the results might not be the Google Translate for Animals app we desire. There's also the question of whether something like that is in anyone's interest. I think it's almost cheapens animals to have that approach to them, where they have to interact with each other and others in the same way that we want them to interact with them. AI might also be a valuable tool in animal husbandry, either at research or an industrial level. Isn't it interesting that animal husbandry isn't bestiality, but just has to do with grooming to be, animals and farming? Either at research or industrial level, but there are still important things we can do right now with the tools we currently have. Savage gave the example of Kapako, a large flightless parrot found in New Zealand. When it's time to mate, Kapako males dig a small pit and make a booming noise using the hollow they made to amplify it. Females will pick their mate by the quality of that boom, but when you have a small population, this poses an issue where only few males are successful and the gene pool becomes limited. Savage explains how they were able to retire the best boomers and move them to another island where many juvenile males lived. This allowed the younger generation to learn from the successful males and become adept boomers themselves. As the young mature, they are placed with the females and able to profit from their newfound linguistic abilities. Slowly, these species can recover without risk of genetic limitations. Now, if only we could tell the regent honeyeaters about this. If artificial intelligence eventually delivers on its promise, maybe one day we can. Okay, so that's kind of that's where we're going with animals, and it's pretty much here. I mean, some of these articles were 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Now, if you think that they weren't studying animals over the quarantine while they're alone with their dogs recording them, you missed out, man. Yeah, there's a lot of people that have been doing this research. Digital dog translator from Japan, Japanese novelty awarded the satirical IG Nobel Prize in 2002, but since then the idea of a tech-based animal language translation has become more than just a joke. So it's going to be pretty much the next big thing, is animals talking to each other and us talking to animals and understanding babies rather than babies learning to understand us. What that will mean, God only knows, but I assume that the next step will be for us all to learn this new language that AI translates, that makes what about a language that animals and humans and babies can understand that AI creates, right? I think that's where we're going. Okay, well, let me read through some of these things really quickly and check this stuff out before I jump on to... Oh, you know what? Your DALL-E thing is already done. So, again, DALL-E it's so much more specific that it's not as artistic, in my opinion. You can use DALL-E to do things like, say, draw a picture of Jesus or Donald Duck. But when you give it like a beautiful sentence like this, that's going to be better for OpenAI. So I'm going to grab your tubular cross-thatch pattern of counter-rotating mechanical obtainium and graphene material that levitates while assisting artificial flight, and I'm going to put that into my OpenAI diffusion program, and I'll give you that tomorrow. I think that's pretty much everything I want to cover. I want to tell you more about quantum entanglement and Wi-Fi 7, but I guess I should wait for tomorrow. Oh, let me just end on this because it's funny. Mafia, I just realized this, etymology. Well, if you go to the Islamic Emirates period where it controlled Sicily, the word ma'afi, or marafi, right, because the hyphen in the Persian, ma'afi, exempted in Islamic law, the yearly jariza is the yearly tax imposed on non-Muslims, and ma'afi were exempted, right? So if you paid your tax, you were exempted from being killed or from being... Yeah, so this is huge. The ma'afi, connection to the Islamic Emirate from 831 to 1032. This is the way the world was. And then what do we have? The mafia leave Sicily during Mussolini's period and come to the United States. Completely unrelated stuff, but I mean, to what we're talking about today. But you guys know, I mean, this is really important, and I'm going to have to do a whole history lesson just on the mafia again, because, you know, you got to imagine how interesting it is that the mafia even exists and what it meant that they existed in the, you know, the 1800s, but even that they exist in the 800s. I mean, gosh, right? Do what you need to crazy robot techs. Yeah, well, again, if we don't do it, somebody else will, and they're going to do it evil. So let's at least know what's going on and be in charge of making sure it's done the best way possible. All right. Oh, I've been meaning to play this song again. Guys, I played a video at like 5 a.m. when I finished it, and I didn't get enough views. Go back and just click on that video. Honestly, it does the algorithm good. But in the meantime, I'm going to make you watch it again anyway. Ha ha.
Let's do it, guys. Right. It's morphin' time.
Putting that bass down, shaking the dance floor. And I wanna know what's up with your girl. Dirty dance for me, that's the way it's gotta be. Grinding up, down, side to side. She a freak. I know.
Dude, trying to resize stuff is impossible. And take 2.
Let's do it, guys. Right. It's morphin' time.
Putting that bass down, shaking the dance floor. And I wanna know what's up with your girl. Dirty dance for me, that's the way it's gotta be. Grinding up, down, side to side. She a freak. I know what you want, you ain't gotta say a thing. All you need to do is let me see your hips swing. I'll take you from the club to the car to the girl. You can drink it like a baby if on
Digital
you don't
technology.
dropping the bass now all over the place. Wow, got all these girls around me starting in the crowd. It's all in your face, how I'm winning in the chase now. Dancing around the club, wipe the sweat off my brow. Let's take it to another level. Notice where the devil sounds like it's playing heavy metal. Drop it down, don't play around. Listen to the sound. Shake the ground.
Bass down, bass down, bass down, bass down, bass down, bass down, bass. Execute digital technology.
I'm gonna go in, bring it back again. Juice and gin with all your friends. Join the party, it don't have to end. The event of the year you must attend. Nothing wild like a no need to pretend. No posers, haters, only best friends. Refill your drinks way too often. Just think of the fix I will send. Tryna get with me, that's gonna be down. How much of that down that you trying to spend. The kind of fun where I don't need out. The call is down, drinking dancing all night. You'll never want
Digital
it to
technology.
end.
Bass down, bass down, bass down, bass down, bass down, bass down, bass. Execute digital technology.
Dropping the bass now over the place. Wow, got all these girls around me starting in the crowd. It's all in your face, how I'm winning in the chase now. Dancing around the club, wipe the sweat off my brow. Let's take it to another level. Not is the devil. Sounds like it's playing heavy metal. Drop it down, don't play around. Listen to the sound. Shake the ground.
Bass down, bass down, bass down, bass down, bass down, bass down, bass. Execute digital technology. Bass down, bass down, bass down, bass down, bass down, bass down, bass. Execute digital technology.
Nice. Okay, guys. Tonight I've got the show Based AF with the Krigler crew, and so there's Garrett, there's George the Dragon Slayer, who's amazing. We've been talking about AI and a lot of stuff and data. Flawdzilla, brilliant man as well, and yeah, so a lot of cool people that are very different than me. So I hope you enjoy that show tonight, and then we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the super chats. I will give you the picture that has been rendered tomorrow. And then what else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, go on theandreas.me, check out the site, see if there's anything you guys want to ask me to do. You can ask me for specific subjects, and we're gonna start going over, things people want to go over. Cool. Love you. And yeah, enjoy. Peace. Oh, wait. Where's that at?
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarian.